Governments are dangerous. In fact, they are so dangerous there should be a health warning at the bottom of ballot papers. Governments are also addictive in much the same way as alcohol and artificial drugs are. Too much alcohol or artificial drugs gives the user a false perspective and a need to consume more. It eventually kills them. Likewise, too much government is addictive and also gives people a false perspective that eventually kills them. Since the Berlin Wall came down and the communist mafia moved wholesale from the east to the west, we now have political Marxism taking over our lives. Now let's get things into perspective. Governments generally neither rule nor run a country. Unelected elite banking cartels rule countries, and unelected civil servants run countries. Governments are the middlemen whose job is to extort as much money as possible from the gullible masses in order to pay back an ever-increasing debt that doesn't exist. It's probably the biggest confidence trick known to humanity, but it survives by keeping the public in total ignorance. People go to the polls with the misguided belief that a political party is going to make their lives better. In reality, they are simply choosing the political party whose confidence trickery gives them the false impression that their life will financially improve. It won't, as all political parties are controlled by the fraudulent banking cartel, who also control the mainstream media. No mainstream political party mentions debt-free currency. They can't. If they did, it would be the end of their party and possibly the end of their life. Now let's look at these jolly band of confidence tricksters that we call governments. In one form or another, we've had thousands of years of governments, and what has it brought us? Wars, genocide on a monumental scale, tax slavery, a health service that puts healthy profits before human health, the complete destruction of our culture due to Marxism, and a hidden divide and rule policy that's brought about by deliberate mass migration. And that's just the beginning. Governments are made up of egotistical psychopaths, almost every form of sexual deviant you could wish to come across, paedophiles, the criminally deranged, and fruitcakes that in a normal society should be locked away out of harm's way in a padded cell. Admittedly, there are a minority of politicians that seem to be genuine, but I question what the seemingly genuine ones are doing amongst the overall majority of crackpot criminals that should either be in jail or receiving psychiatric treatment in a funny farm. If we had real governments, they would tell the ruling criminal banking elite to go to hell. Government would then be responsible for the issuing of debt-free currency. If that happened, the role of government would be dramatically reduced. There would be no need for the stifling and deliberately confusing array of illegal taxes, such as income tax and council tax that incidentally isn't a tax, it's a contract. Only a simple purchase tax would be necessary that nobody could avoid. The entire benefit and pension system would be scrapped and replaced with a simple national wage that would rise in increments as the person gets older. The national wage could be drawn regardless of whether you are a multimillionaire, working or not working. It would be a safety net. Disabled people would get double or treble the national wage. Immigrants would not be entitled to the national wage until they have lived here for around 20 years or more. Above all, there would be strict laws on government to protect us from them. At the moment, it's the other way around, and that's dangerous. The only way I can see real change happening is for peaceful and lawful civil disobedience. Sadly, the majority of people are addicted to government to a point where they are so intoxicated by the government's mouthpiece, the BBC, they simply don't want to believe what's really happening. I've found government junkies tend to fall into four categories. First, there are the assertive snobs, the uneducated that thinks they're educated. They read the controlled mass media and have a massive television that can blast BBC propaganda at them 24/7. Such people also get a fix when walking into a bank, as nowadays many banks have televisions that blast out BBC News 24 as if it's a religious sermon. Second, there is the "all rights." They are the people that live their life in a permanent soap opera world. When you tell them what's really going on, it goes in one ear and out of the other. Their eyes roll, they look skyward and say, "all right." Third are the duplicators. You tell them what's really going on, and they look as if they've grasped it, but they haven't. In reply, they simply recite, like parrots, what the BBC and government have told them. The fourth are the "oh, surely nots." Whenever you tell them facts, their reply is always, "oh, surely not." In fact, I'd like to know who Surely Not is. Is she Irish? When you look at the situation from another perspective, it's rather funny. There we are, living in a country ruled by psychos who manage to convince people the country owes a bunch of criminal bankers a lot of money, and the masses believe it. Another way of getting back at the establishment is via humour. Psychos don't have a sense of humour. Their humour is the politically correct type of rubbish that is now pumped out on the BBC. During World War I, the troops published an underground newspaper called the Wipers Times, which should be the Eepes Times. It told the truth via humour, and the establishment didn't know how to handle it. Initially they thought of banning it, but that would do the opposite and make the newspaper more popular. The establishment were in a dilemma, as the truth was coming out and it was hitting at them. Now, rather like a modern day Wipers Times, we now have Fockham Hall Times. Like many of us, I'm fed up living in a Marxist United Kingdom. Emigrating would be an answer, but I can't afford to and don't want to. Also, there are only a handful of countries left that are not controlled by the banksters. I then hit upon the idea of forming my own country, Fockham Hall, possibly the smallest country in the world. Stay tuned for more information. Thanks for listening.